Hey guys, thanks for joining me again today. Today is going to be a little bit longer of a video because we're going to be talking about post-cleanse. So we're going to probably look at about 20 minutes or so, I think, but maybe less. We'll just dive in and see where it goes. Okay. First off, congratulations for coming this far. You are either on a 21-day and almost done with this whole process of the cleanse itself, not the whole life process of this, or you're on a 28-day and you're starting to near the end of the cleanse. And I wanted to really congratulate you. Very few people undertake this process. Most people choose easier ways, either something counting calories where there's pre-made foods that are all measured and full of chemicals and junk, and they go that direction because this is a direction that actually requires more input from any individual that's involved in it. And I think that is a big deterrent. You also don't get the really high sugary flavors while you're on this. And a lot of other programs, you do get that. And this is kind of, I think, an unknown too. Anyone diving into this, I really have a lot of respect for. And you definitely dove in, you've made it this far, which is fantastic. I don't think I've shared in this video process that I didn't actually make it through my first cleanse. I did my cleanse on my own. I was just starting to study nutrition, and I bought a detox program and went ahead and did it. And I think it was like day 8, something like that. I just couldn't go without coffee and I gave up. If I had anyone guiding me along, as I do for people, that person probably would have said to me, you know, if you can't do without the coffee, that's okay. Just keep going because you're going to have an immeasurable amount of benefit anyway. Doesn't matter, just keep going. But I didn't know that. So I kind of felt like it was all or nothing and I quit. And then I was drawn back to the process again, which was really great, and I'm glad I kept going. Once you get off the cleanse, things are going to change a little bit, and that's what this is really about. We want to plan for that. We want to start looking at where do you want to go. Everybody is different. Do you want to lose more weight? Do you want to improve your health in general? Even more, do you have a specific health issue that you might want to address at this point that hasn't completely gone away, that you want to work with? What are your goals? What are your desires? Where do you want to go? Start thinking about this. This is long-term for the rest of your life. You can have whatever dream you want while making these goals. And then start thinking about what is it going to be required to do to get you there, because you need to know that. This is a little to your health timeline, and this timeline shows in the purple that first either you're doing a 21 or you might be doing a 28-day, but that purple line goes almost straight up. That's how much improvement you have. A lot more weight loss, health improvements, sleeping better, feeling better, hormone balance, whatever it is for you, it's been really going strong. And then the next line, which is kind of in orange, goes up kind of on a less steep grade. And that's the rest of your life. And I want to point that out. When you stop this detox program, the good news is that you keep eating healthy, you make a plan and go with it, and you will have an amazing improvement over a long period of time. I saw improvement for 2 years in my life when I changed how I ate. What gets a little harder is to see the improvement because it's on a less steep grade, it's going a little slower. In the cleanse, you're like, yeah, I'm sleeping better, feel good. But then as it slows down, It's really important to be aware of that. That way you can look back, see where you were, and you want to evaluate yourself, not so much every day or even every week or even every month, but you might want to look back on yourself after a couple of months. And then really ask yourself, where was I 2 months ago? Okay, yeah, moving forward. It's even good as you notice positive things happening to jot them down, because that will support you to keep going. And I'll get to that in just a minute, we can fool ourselves a little bit, and we all know that. One of the most important things that you've learned in this process, and remember I talked about, if you saw my video originally introducing the cleanse to people, I talk about the Trojan horse, how food is really the Trojan horse now. It's very pretty packaged, and it's got all this chemicals and all this crap in there, but we think, like as in the Trojan horse story, that it's really good and it's good for us. And this little horse on the other side is full of fruits and vegetables and all kinds of great things for a plant-based whole foods diet. And you know the difference now. You know the difference between fake food and real food. A lot of people start this process and they look at what's on the menu and they say, yeah, but what food am I going to be eating? Because they don't think of things like apples and nuts as food, but it is, right? As you kind of wind down and get off this more stringent way of eating with the cleanse and relax a few of the parameters of how you eat, then new challenges can come up, and you want to be aware of those. Number one is how quick we forget. You could be off this cleanse, and I've seen this happen a lot with people. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I have plans for this, and they don't really set goals. They don't stick to a particular plan. They go off the mark and pretty soon start to forget how good they felt. And then what they say is, this didn't work for me because I gained all my weight back. And it isn't the process not working. That's never the case. It's always us. It's us not working the process. And I'll tell you something, if you fall off the mark, don't worry about it, get back on. The only time we fail is when we stop trying. As I told you, I did not make it through my first cleanse. I had many failures, or so I thought, along the way. And it took me a long time to get finally on the path and get to that point where I wanted to stay on the path more than I wanted to eat junk. It was really my heart's desire, because I knew that it was a better life and that's what I wanted. But it took me a while, back and forth, back and forth. And that's okay. Never beat yourself up. Never, ever beat yourself up. Just remember that every day is literally a new beginning. Every time you take your covers and throw them off and you put your foot on the floor and you step into your new day, it is an opportunity for a new beginning. And you can decide every single day how you want to live the rest of your life and go there. What I would say to anyone with challenges, if you're running into difficulty, if you know you're kind of falling off the mark, please contact me. I want to be of help to you. I want to know that 2 and 3 years from now, you are doing fantastic and happy and eating well, and anything I can do to help you along that path, I'm happy to do. Start thinking about what some of your personal challenges are. What do you tend to do? Are you a nighttime eater? Do you need to have something to eat when you're watching your favorite TV program? Do you tend to eat when you're stressed? What do you do? Because you're going to have to figure out what these challenges are. Let's say you eat when you're stressed. What are you going to do instead of eating when you're stressed? You might want to sit and do a little prayer, a little meditation. You might want to say, I take a walk, and don't forget the 3, 2, 1, go whenever you're being challenged, because from minute to minute in your day, you can change what you're doing. Start to think about what your challenges really are. When did you tend to feel like you needed junk the most? Is it like a morning Starbucks, latte, frappuccino, whatever, that gets you going in the morning? Or is it the middle of the afternoon is the hardest for you, where you feel like I need something to get myself going? Because what'll happen over the long term, and I definitely want to say this, is I used to just tank in the afternoons because I had too much sugar in my diet. I never tank in the afternoon. I mean, occasionally I get a little yawny and I might have a little bit of green tea, but I don't go out and just slam my body with tons of caffeine, because I know that that caffeine is going to create more of an up and a down and an up and a down. And there I go right back on the roller coaster again. The media is all about getting you to eat crap, and everything that you're going to be barraged with as you see, as you go out into the world. Even people can be difficult. One of my clients had a lot of challenges at work because they would have work functions and everybody was always like, come on, you can have a little bit of this or a little bit of that. And it's not that she never had a little bit of this or that. It's just she wanted to do it on her own time and didn't want to eat the crap they had at the work functions. You know, find the ways to get through it. I'm fine with people who, you know, tell a little bit of a white lie just to get through something. Sometimes you can just say, hey, you know, I might have an eating whatever, like a food sensitivities. And because of that, I don't eat these foods. I mean, that stops people because they were really nagging her about it. And there needed to be a way for her to get them to stop, because it was kind of awkward and uncomfortable. And this is work, you know? And there's going to be family and friends who are going to make comments and say things as you're healthy and eating healthy. You know, I remember people saying things to me when I was so thrilled not to be eating junk. They say, oh, I won't. Oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't be eating this in front of you because you can't have that. You know, and in the beginning, I kind of always wanted to correct people and say, yeah, I can have anything I want. I don't want to have that. But then, you know, you just forget it and let it go. This is my life. I'm happy. Who cares? But the people that we love are very well-meaning for the most part, right? Our friends and our family. But if they're not going down the direction of health, it's a little bit uncomfortable for them that you might be. And they sometimes want to influence us in a negative way. And that's okay. You know, that's just where they are. And also, you know, we may run into having groups of friends socially that always eat badly and that there's no option and they're not willing to compromise at all for your new way of being. And sometimes too, when we change our lifestyle, some people may have to be let go, and that's just something we run into. You know, I have friends that we used to, from years ago, that I used to eat pretty badly with, and they still do, but we just kind of work around it. And when we get together, we all have our own food and we laugh about it, and that's great. And that's what tells me who they are as my friends. They don't care how I eat. They're not threatened at all. They want to eat their junk and they're fine with what I do. Places, events, things that are stressful. You know, the holidays, every year they come around and people start eating on Thanksgiving and they don't stop till past New Year's. And you want to start thinking about these things, because once you're heading off with the races, it's hard to rein everything in again. So think about these events. Like Christmas, you can eat on Thanksgiving and just say, maybe I eat Thanksgiving and then I don't eat crap until Christmas, or I'm going to eat Thanksgiving weekend, that whole 4 days, and then I'm going to stop until Christmas. Or I'm going to just have one party. That's what I like to do. One of my friends used to always have this great catered party, and that was my one party. I would indulge in whatever I wanted and really have just this great food experience. You know, it was catered, it was tasty. Not really healthy, but not horrible either. And understand that knowledge now means responsibility, and responsibility means that we don't let ourselves off the hook so much, right? We know the difference, and that responsibility says that you're responsible for yourself. And what I'll tell you in terms of that is the majority of people are not responsible for their own health. The majority of the people, and we're in the midst right now of COVID-19, and everybody is like waiting for a vaccine to come show up and bail us all out. But the truth is that being healthy and keeping your stress low will prevent, for the majority of the people, either getting it severely or having a really bad outcome. We don't have to wait. And I'm not saying whether I'm for or against vaccines. What I'm saying is be responsible right now. This is a time when we should be getting healthy, because 99% of the people who are not elderly, who are getting sick with this COVID and dying from it, are people who are significantly obese and have secondary health problems. You know, you really want to look at that. And also people who are overly stressed. We all get sick when we're in stress because there's an inverse relationship. Stress goes up, immune system function goes down. That's the way our bodies work. And the majority of people are still stuck in the, you know, everybody says I don't like the medical profession, but they go to the doctors and then they get mad when all the doctor offers them is a pill, but that's what doctors offer. And if you don't want that, if you don't want the pills, then you have to do this. And that means absolute responsibility, and it means not allowing excuses anymore. Not allowing the excuse saying that I don't have time, or this is too hard, or whatever the excuse might be, because excuses only come up when we really don't want to do something. We find excuses for not doing it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. Some options to make living this way easier, because that's what makes it possible to continue eating in a healthy way. Okay, but let's talk reintroduction, because a lot of you have been off foods that are the more common foods that people are sensitive to, like dairy, like gluten, like nuts and eggs. And if you've only been off a couple of them, that's fine. This will apply to whatever ones you happen to have been off. Whatever detox program, you're all a little bit different. The most important thing is, if you haven't had any dairy, for example, or gluten, is that you want to add these things back one at a time. That means that if you decide to have a little bread that has wheat or has gluten in it, you don't want to have dairy on the same day. What you want to do is have that bread with gluten in it and allow a few days to go by just to notice if you have any symptoms, because we're looking for sensitivities when we add things back. And then after a few days, you can add the dairy in and see how you do with dairy. This is finding sensitivities and finding allergies. Allergies, you will get an immediate response. Sensitivities, you can get a response that's delayed. For example, you could have gluten sensitivity and feel fine the day you ate it, but the next day you notice that you're a little foggy thinking in your head. And that's why you want to wait a few days. And I have a couple of days here, but I actually even say 3 or 4 days to wait. Dairy and grains and chemicals, because if you start adding back certain foods that are processed, meaning they're in boxes, cans, they're not in their natural form, they will have chemicals, and you may eat them and also notice reactions, sensitivities. And these sensitivities can look or come in many different forms. Here is a list of all the symptoms like gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, reflux. You can read through this, but these are the most common ones that I put down, but they're not the only ones. People get weird things like, I don't think I put itching down here, but oh yeah, hives definitely would have some itching, but any type of skin reaction. My husband's sensitive to chemicals and he gets what he calls phantom pains. He gets pains in his hands and his forearms when he eats any processed food because there's something in there that just irritates him that way. So look for these things. Give yourself 3 or 4 days. If you notice gas and bloating 3 days after you've had a piece of bread, then you're having a sensitivity to gluten. And then at that point, if you realize you have a sensitivity, what you want to do with food like that is stay off of it completely for a while. And you can contact me for that too. I can give you some suggestions and directions in terms of that. Neural pathways will always change, and that will happen eventually. You are going to get off this detox and you're still going to have food cravings. You're still going to have to work with them. It took me to get off sugar completely. And, you know, when I say completely, I have like, you know, cake on my birthday, or I love Starbucks brownies. And my stepdaughter will get me some, but like I stick it in the freezer for a long time and pull it out on a nice occasion when I want to eat something like that. But I don't indulge a lot, because if I do, I wake up those brain pathways again, and then I'll start hearing that little, come on, have some sugar, keep it going. But it took me 6 months of no sugar before I actually changed how I felt about it. And definitely doing the detox program helped, because it got me off of sugar for the very first time in my adult life, or in my life. Remember I shared that, you know, I was like weaned on sugar because I wasn't breastfed and the formulas had sugar in them. So I've had sugar my entire life. So give yourself time to change, and just know that that's going to happen for you. Your brain is like anybody else's brain. It'll happen. And be gentle with yourself, as nice as you would be with a friend that you cared for. Moving forward is continuing that process of changing how you think and how you relate to food. It's a learning process. Have some, you know, care and gentleness and humor with yourself. Eat healthy to increase joy and quality of life in the long term, rather than eating for a momentary pleasure, which has such a debt attached to it. Remember that. Here are some of my suggestions, because people often say to me as you get off this, okay, but I can't keep up this constantly prepping for food. And what we do is figure out, and this is something to get thinking about for your meeting. And this whole video is about prepping you for the meeting that we're going to have, that when I meet with you before you finished. And I want you to start thinking about, what are some good fast foods for you? What works for fast food? These are all mine. In the morning, in a rush, I like doing the blended drink. I'm a detox fanatic, of course, so I keep detoxing. I use the SB Complete, and I use a little bit of the chocolate flavored one, and I make blended drinks. Those are one of my favorite snacks or fast foods when I'm home. Toss everything in, and I have this fabulously delicious drink that's very healthy for me. I also love eggs. So I do a lot of eggs for breakfast, because I'm a believer in getting in that fat and that protein. Healthy fat, healthy protein. Got to have those. We've all had plenty of carbs. But eggs make a great fast food. You can scramble eggs up in 5 minutes. And a fun Friday night, sometimes if we're tired, we do over easy eggs, and we throw the over easy eggs onto a nice piece of toast and we gob some butter on. You know, it's all natural. It's healthy. The bread that we make, my husband just likes to cook, so he actually makes our bread from spelt. But there's plenty of places to go out and get a nice, healthier version bread. And there's nothing wrong with eating that. We have been inundated by the food industry thinking that if we eat eggs and butter, that's a bad thing to do. And that's utterly ridiculous. I also love, I put PB&J, but actually it's it's almond butter. And I don't use jam. We like honey. So we put honey with almond butter and have that. That's another one of my fast foods. I love, if I'm traveling and I need something to eat, hitting Starbucks. Not just for, a decaf latte, but I'll often get something like their little to-go things that'll have nuts and cheese and fruit in it. They actually have some pretty good little fast food choices if I don't have anything in the car, but oftentimes I bring stuff in the car. I prepare in advance for food. And that is so helpful. Pre-made salads, we make salad on the weekend and we'll get 4 days worth made at one time. And we have 4 healthy lunches throughout the week. Good to go. And that really helps. I love making soups. I make soup because I can make soup and I can take the next day and have the soup again if I make enough. And I can even make a little bit more and freeze a batch so that I have it for some time later. There's a lot of ways to creatively eat healthy without reinventing the wheel all the time. There's just going out to someplace like Whole Foods for a dinner where you have the salad bar with whatever you might want on there, or going to a healthy, really healthy choice restaurant. How do you want to eat now? What's the best way to go? And I'll tell you what I think, and that's a whole foods plant-based diet. And I don't care if people want to be vegan or vegetarian or whatever they decide, whether you're doing low carb, this, that, or the other thing. If you want to, go ahead. But here's what I think. Don't demonize real foods. When you start demonizing real foods, that is a direct result of teaching and brainwashing from the food industry, because they want us to think certain things are bad and they're steering us towards their packaged foods. That's where the ideas came from. Why did they come up with, I think eggs were bad, and why are eggs demons in terms of cholesterol? I don't know how much power the egg industry has, but definitely the fast food people, they don't want you eating that. They want you eating your Eggo waffle in the morning with dumping tons of syrup on it. So use healthy fats. There's a great acronym: bacon, butter, avocado, coconut, olive, and nuts. Those are all healthy fats. Easy. Then grains, which are less modified. The grains that everybody wants are the ones they've modified, like wheat. The older, not so popular, like spelt, things like quinoa, bulgur, millet. And I like spelt a lot. Spelt does have some gluten in it, but it's a much easier digestible form. And then eating organic fruits and vegetables. Meats and fish fed naturally, antibiotic free, organic, free range, all that. It is more expensive to have grass-fed organic meats for sure. What I suggest to people is eat less meat. And then grilling. I had that on the slide before this, I didn't mention, but we just like broil things up. Sometimes we do a piece of meat and a baked potato, and that's our meal. Now, a lot of people would say that's not a well-balanced meal, but I eat plenty of vegetables throughout my days. So if I want to have a dinner of a baked potato with some butter and a piece of meat, I don't shy away from that, because I know that these are not the foods that got us into trouble, right? And that's what we need our brains to be wrapped around. It's not the foods that our grandparents ate that were the problem. It's the foods that we have been fed for the last 15 years. Nuts and seeds. If you're going to have dairy, I suggest that you have an organic raw dairy. And the reason is raw dairy, and I've been using raw dairy for many years. Raw dairy is alive. Pasteurized dairy is dead. There's nothing in there, and it's loaded with crap. But raw dairy, and I live in California, so it's easy to get raw dairy. Sunrise Natural Food carries it, but other places as well. And it has live bacteria that actually help digest the things that most people have food sensitivities. Most people can't digest, they're lactose intolerant, or they have a problem with the casein. And both of those are digested by the live bacteria in raw dairy. And that is why the majority of people have issues with dairy, is because they're eating a dead food and they can't digest it. Where if you give them a healthy live food, people digest it just fine because the live bacteria digest it. See how this all works? It's like there was a reason everything was put together the way it is. It is beautifully done. We don't need to muck it up. We have not improved on food at all. Okay. And you want to have nuts and seeds and then plenty of water always. But you know what? If you're not drinking a bunch of caffeine, you don't need to hydrate so much. I don't carry a water bottle, and I see tons of people carrying water bottles. The only time I do have water with me is if I'm traveling, because I'm going to go from one place to another. And if it's a short period of time, I can do without a little bit of water because I'm well hydrated in general. I like drinking water in the evening. I drink water. I have a glass of water at my bedside, and if I wake up, I drink a little bit. I finish that glass in the morning because that's when we need hydrating the most, and just go from there. Always limit the processed food. This is the stuff that gets us into trouble, and that has the most toxic load. Limit caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine is attacking the adrenal system, and it is affecting blood sugar. It has a negative effect. In the long term, in the short term, it's great. If you're really tired and you have an important meeting that day, I would say go out and bam a coffee down before your meeting, because it's going to open up and get you thinking clearly. And that's a short-lived thing, but that's got to be a short-term solution. You can't use that all the time. Alcohol will make you fat. It is hard on the liver, so you want to limit alcohol. We're not meant to have a lot of it, just not. And as far as sugar, I like whole leaf stevia the most. Every year I go out and I buy a plant. They're so easy. You go to the local nursery. I can get a whole leaf stevia plant. When the leaves are grown, I pluck them off. I throw them in a plate. They dry out. I put them in a jar, and then I have stevia for the whole year. And I throw stevia in whatever I need. The other thing I'll tell you is that if you don't put your glasses on, and you have basil in jars as well, stevia looks very much like basil. And I had a bunch of people over, and I was making a whipped cream. I was whipping the cream up and adding in my stevia because I didn't want to do an unnatural sugar. And I keep tasting it. I'm going, why isn't this getting sweet? Because stevia is pretty sweet. And I'm looking at it, and then I'm thinking, is the color change? My stepson is right there, and I showed it to him. I said, do you taste this too? And he's like, I think you're putting basil in there. And I realized, oh my gosh, I didn't have my glasses on, so I'm throwing basil, and this whipped cream was turning green and not sweet. But it was fabulous because we had the best laugh over the dessert. We were all laughing about what I did, and I served it up green and sweet and tasted fine. The other thing are dates are super, and honey and bananas. Bananas are great sweeteners. In fact, if you have blood sugar issues, you need to watch how many bananas. But what do I love about stevia plant is you get the leaf. So you get the fiber, the whole component. A lot of these processed sugars, and it may be coconut, or maybe this, it may be that, they're all processed out. There's no fiber left in, and it doesn't matter. They're just packaging up crap sugar a new way for you. So then your game plan. Okay. Oh, I went down a few here. All right, we went through that one. Your game plan. Prior to your follow-up appointment, and if you don't have that set, definitely set it now. Come up with 3 long-term and 3 short-term goals of health that you would like. And if you just come up with 2, that's fine, but just sit down and think about your goals. What do you really want? What's your dream? What's your dream scenario? How do you see yourself in 2 years? Do you need 30 more pounds that you'd like to have off of you? Do you have health conditions you still want to improve upon? Where do you want to go? Because I want you to make the plan. There was studies done, if people make goals, they actually will achieve what it is they're trying to achieve nearly 100% of the time. And that's what I want to see happen for you. Where do you want to go in your next couple years? How do you see yourself in your future? I'm turning 60 this year, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, I'm headed down to 70 and 80. What do I want to be like at 70 and 80? And I want to be moving about and happy and doing the things I enjoy. The question then is, what do I need to do to get there? And that's what you want to start thinking about. What are your goals, your dreams? And then start thinking about how you're going to get there. And be excited about it. Knowing you have a dream and an end game carries us through. And we'll talk about this when we get together. And write down 3 changes you are ready to make to achieve your goals, and bring all of these to your meeting with me. Think about what you want, how you're going to get there, and what are you willing to do? What changes are you willing to make in your life? And go from there. Epigenetics, I want to say a couple words about. The big deal on the genes, a few years ago, genes determine what happened to us. And I want to say to you that I believe that what genes we have is of small importance. What's most important is how these genes are expressed. And how these genes express is directly related to how we live our lives, not just the foods we eat and whether we exercise, but how we think and how we feel, whether or not we're negative to ourselves and make ourselves feel bad, and by having really, negative thoughts, actually. And nutrition plays a great big role, but it's also how we think and how we feel. And I think that it's so important to realize that we are so responsible for how our lives are. And the older I get, the more I think that this is true. And I don't say that in a way that says, it's our fault, wave a finger. I don't believe that at all, because I know that every single one of us do the best we can. Until, we know better, we can't change things. But I say this because it means you're empowered. You are empowered. I don't go to the doctor like, what are you going to do for me? My thing is, what am I going to do for me? What am I going to do? How am I going to maintain my health? Because ultimately I'm responsible for it now, because I didn't understand growing up. There was sugar on the table and we just ate it. But, I don't blame my parents for putting the sugar bowl out. That's what people did then. We are what we are born with, but we are what we eat, think, and do. And this is what epigenetics is. It is gene expression. And there's so many exciting studies that have been done and miraculous things that have happened showing that if we change, our bodies and our minds change. I want to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be, and that's my dream. That's my goal every day. And I hope that this process has excited you a little bit about that. I also want to tell you I do nutritional testing. If there are things you would like to work on, we can do a whole body scan. I do a Zyto scan, which is one of the best tests I've ever found that's quite reasonably priced. And it's easy for me to offer it and doesn't take too much of your time. And hair analysis, which I've done for years. It tells you everything that's in your body by what's in your hair, because they look at patterns of illness related to nutrients. And these two tests have been just remarkably helpful, accurate, and have made a huge difference for me working with people. If you're somebody who wants to keep going and dive in, then let me know at the meeting when we get together, and we can even talk a little bit at the meeting about what it is you're concerned with or what would you like to change, because that way I can steer you in the direction that you need to go. Being healthy is the least expensive way to live, and anybody who says otherwise just doesn't know any better. Remember to keep detoxing. And this is not the last video, by the way. It is the longest video, but not the last one. You want to detox and continuously detox. Right now we're going through fires in California. But we all get chemical load, even if we eat perfectly. There is glyphosate in everything and everywhere. And there are chemicals in our water and this, that, and the other thing. This is a process you want to repeat. And you can repeat it in many ways. You don't have to do it for 21 or 28 days. You can do it for 5 days. If I go on vacation and I've kind of been out, really out there in the way I've been eating and living, then I come home and I might do a mini cleanse, like through just 3 or 4 days. I like once a year to do a regular sized one, but we offer whatever length you want to do. I can help you, guide you as to how to do this. I am so excited for anyone who's been through this process and that how life can change. And it's been remarkable for me and family members and friends and many other people through my practice that I've guided through. This is one of the funnest things I do because it is life altering. And I've seen people get off their meds for conditions that we never thought were possible. If you've never seen Yvonne's story of her having an inflammatory pituitary tumor and how she went through the process, it's on the homepage of my website. I would definitely check it out. And I think we're done now. And I'll just thank you guys so much for joining me. And we're gonna sign off now as soon as I can figure out where I stop this sucker. I will, there we go. Okay, and I haven't done one of these in a while, so you guys can go. I just have to figure out how to shut this off. And have a great day, guys. We'll see you next time. I found the end.